15 proxy vintage event at the Bearded Dragon in Bernardsville, New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean these are all great events. You can earn a lot of points this way. Something that I'm particularly very excited about is the EE points levels that we're introducing. In case you have forgotten them, we have 6 levels. The first level at 50 points is a 1-round buy for the main Eternal Extravaganza events. 100 points is the 1-round buy plus free entry. At 200 points, you get 2 buys and free entry. At 300 points, you have a 2-round buy for all main events at one Eternal Extravaganza, and free entry to both of these events. At 500 points, you'll be receiving a $200 appearance fee for any one of the Eternal Extravaganza events and 2-round buys and free entry to all the events. And at level 6, 1,000 points, you receive a $500 appearance fee for any one Eternal Extravaganza event in addition to the 2-round buys and free entry.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. There's a lot of incentive to go out to these events and try to do well.
Definitely.
So speaking of doing well, gonna take a look at our current ELO leaderboard. Our highest ranked player right now is Josh Patuchek at 55 points on the leaderboard, also at the top of the ELO rankings. So Josh has already earned his 1-round buy for the main Eternal Extravaganza event. And if he continues to do well with these, he can get some more buys, maybe get the appearance fee, get some free entry. Sounds pretty sweet. And then, so following up on the ELO rankings, we also have William Kang, Takamitsu Shinmoto, Alexander Tape, and Roy Reese. Those are current top players. And as more of these events fire, like the gold events we mentioned this weekend, the leaderboard will fill out a bit, and the players that are consistently doing very well at these tournaments will rise to the top and get their rewards for doing such. Yeah, ELO.
Congratulations there, guys.
Yeah.
Doing well right off the bat. Definitely gonna give them a head against everyone else.
Definitely. So if we take a quick look at the actual points leaderboard, we see Josh Patuchek with his 55 points, already good enough for a bye. And then second place, trailing a bit, but just only one good finish away from getting up to that level 1, is Roy Reese from his finish at the silver event with Miracles, finished in second place, losing to Josh in the finals. Then we have Takamitsu Shinmoto with 14 points, and then Dan Miller and Zach Kramer at 12 points from finishing in third and fourth place at the silver event. So that is most of what we have for the leaderboard right now. As we mentioned before, most of these, as you can see, are the top 4 from the silver event, but as more events happen, we'll develop a little bit more, and we'll get some interesting races going for these level 5, level 6 incentives. So we're going to move on to our deck of the week. This is a 4-color landstill strategy by Josh Patuchek. Zach, can you tell us a little bit about this deck?
Yeah. So this deck is pretty reminiscent of some old school Deathblade lists, using Deathrite Shaman to help fix your mana and your 4-color mana bases. Uses like creature lands, Crucible, and Standstill though, which is different instead of like the Stoneforge Mystic package. Crucible's really good in these decks because you can't get Wastelanded out. Really helps you stay in the game despite the major disruptions in the format against a deck like yours.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that this deck plays 24 lands. That's a lot more than I've seen in most Legacy decks, or any of the Legacy decks with Brainstorms, because you get to like trim your lands to play a few more cantrips. But this build, 24 lands, more than most of the control decks as well, which I think is interesting. But that seems like it helps him cast all of his spells, first of all, because the color requirements are pretty demanding with your double white and double blue planeswalkers and your black-green removal spells, engineered explosives, things like that. But then also having 5 colorless lands in the deck with 3 Mishra's Factory and 2 Wastelands, mostly as your win conditions once Standstill is down. I think the high land count is really, really interesting.
Not to mention just 3 basics in the deck too.
Yeah, yeah. He is planning on playing a long game and does not want to get to a point where he can be wasted off of any of his Esper colors, particularly early, and wants to have his blue mana in play early to cast all these really powerful spells. Another thing I found really interesting is the So like the high power level cards that you see as 3 and 4 ofs most of the time in his deck. He's playing high numbers of all of those: 4 Brainstorm, 4 Force of Will, 3 Source of Plowshares, and 4 Standstill, the signature card to this strategy. But other than that, he's playing fewer numbers of all of the other cards that are a bit more flexible, but maybe inherently a little less powerful. Which I think it gives him a lot of, when he has so much control over his draw steps with the Brainstorms and the Jace and all these cards, gets his really powerful situational cards when he needs them
Yeah.
right on time.
Like his one of Toxic Deluge, one Verdict, one Pernicious Deed. They're just, silver bullets in any given situation, and
Yep.
they don't necessarily hurt him either in any given situation.
So if you need to clear the board, for example, Explosives can do that, Pernicious Deed can do that, Verdict can do that, Deluge can do that, but they all have slightly different pros and cons. Whereas like Deluge, you can kill a bunch of Empty the Warrens tokens, for example, while keeping your Deathrite Shaman alive. Things like that, they can come up. And this deck definitely seems prepared for things that could come up. What do you think about this sideboard?
Sideboard's really interesting. It's like 3 of powerful cards for very targeted matchups. Those are 3 Flusterstorms and 3 Surgical Extractions, and then basically just a bunch of one-ofs of situational cards that are good in general situations or against specific decks like Containment Priest, Gideon, Ally of Zendikar.
I do really like that a lot of his sideboard disruption comes in the form of threats. Like Vendilion Click can disrupt a combo deck to buy you a turn or see exactly what you have to play around, like, oh, should I Spell Pierce this Brainstorm or not? And having that information from Click is really powerful, but then also turns the game around really quickly and starts attacking as soon as it's gotten its effect in.
Yeah, and gives you information to what to plan ahead for. If you need that explosives, you can shuffle it away,
Similarly with Gideon, if the 2/2 bodies are really important, you just make a lot of ground blockers, but then once you've cleared the board and you need to end the game, Gideon ends the game very, very quickly.
Definitely.
And then, yeah, like you mentioned, just some more flexible cards. The 4th Swords to Plowshares, Pithing Needles, Abrupt Decays, Containment Priests. All pretty powerful, pretty flexible, do a lot of different things, come in a lot of matchups. Which, with these decks with all these one-ofs, it makes a lot of sense that maybe you want to trim your Deluge, Verdict, and Pernicious Deed, but you want the Containment Priest and Vendilion Clicks, for example.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I have not seen any 4-color Landstill decks like this before. I think the last time I saw Landstill strategies in Legacy was GP New Jersey several years ago with the blue-red Landstill deck. Yeah. And this is a completely different take on it. It's kind of hybridizing the Standstill Crucible creature land strategy that we see actually in Vintage pretty often.
Yeah, I was going to say, this looks a lot like a Vintage list.
But then also having the Deathrite Shaman 4-color deck aspect of it, which I haven't seen these combined before. I think it's a really cool deck, and Josh was rewarded with his victory at the Silver event.
So, yeah, congratulations to him.
Yeah, it's a sweet deck. I would be terrified to play against this. No idea what's going on. So next we're gonna take a look at a couple of the other top 4 decks from the Silver event. So first we have Roy Reese's Miracles deck, which is a pretty interesting take on the Miracles strategy. You still have the same Terminus, Counterbalance, Sensei's Divining Top that everybody loves in Miracles.
Loves or hates.
Yeah. But rather than the Entreat predict like longer game win conditions, he's just trying to end the game as quickly as possible with 3 Monastery Mentor, 2 Snapcaster Mage, 1 Jace the Mind Sculptor, and 1 Nahiri the Harbinger. And I've seen some talk of Nahiri in these decks before, but I haven't seen it do a ton at higher level events. But yeah, just getting to discard your extra top, your extra counterbalance, dig into some answers. You know your top cards already, so you know if your drawing is going to be good, and then Nahiri's in play for 2 turns and can just end the game with an Emrakul.
Yeah, this deck is just full of more threats than almost any other Miracles list I've ever seen. Nahiri's also real good in the mirror.
Oh yeah, very powerful.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that also he has 1 Back to Basics, which is almost a win condition against some of the decks that they can't remove it. But I do think it's very interesting that it seems like his deck is trying to sweep the board relatively early with Terminus, playing 4 Terminus just to make sure you can find it, and then basically then as soon as that's happened, play your Monastery Mentor, play a spell or 2, and just turn the game around, and try to win as quickly as possible. and punish your Delver opponents for slow rolling their threats or anything like that.
And once the Monster Mentor is out, it just gets out of control very fast in these decks.
Very
I mean,
quickly.
they're 1 mana spells: Ponder, Swords to Plowshares, Top, all of them. Brainstorm, just provide card advantage and just add to your power and creature number.
So this sideboard has some good technology in it too. The classic 2 Pyroblast, 1 Red Elemental Blast is relatively standard at this point, favoring Pyroblast, of course, because they can trigger Monastery Mentor even if you don't have blue spells or permanents to target. But the one I really want to talk about is the 1 Ruination. Been seeing this a little bit, cards like this and From the Ashes, kind of taking the place of Blood Moon in a lot of these strategies. So why do you think that they're moving towards the spells rather than the permanent-based mana disruption?
Well, something like Blood Moon, a lot of decks are shifting around playing their basics so they can still cast their Abrupt Decays and their answers to things like Blood Moon.
Sure.
Also, they can still just cast spells through Blood Moon if they have a basic land or two.
Right.
Ruination just sets them back.
Right.
Something
can't cast Jace the Mind Sculptor off 2 islands versus 2 islands and 2 basic mountains.
Yeah. And then, like, another choice is From the Ashes, which is Commander 2015.
I believe so.
Yeah, where
2013 maybe.
In a deck,
one of those.
Yeah, in a deck like this Miracles list, where you're just playing, 9 basic lands, you can lose your Volk or your Tundra and just replace with an island or plains, and you're not really set back that far.
Whereas the decks that you really want this effect against generally play 0 basic lands, maybe 1, maybe 2, but they're losing all of their lands and you're replacing yours basically all of the time.
Yeah.
Another interesting piece of technology is the Wipe Away. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It is 1 blue for an instant with split second. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. This is really powerful against cards like the show and tell strategies. If they ever have a Grizzlebrand in play and pass the turn waiting to draw their cards, you wipe away. Don't get to draw any cards, and you're doing it. You 2-for-1 them off. They're reanimating the Grizzlebrand. It's back in their hand. They can't really do anything with it.
And they just lost 7 life.
Yeah, split second, very powerful. So, moving on to that, what do you think about Dan Miller's top 4 finishing Miracles list?
I have played against this list a lot. Dan is a local guy. He's played this deck for a very long time. He's been on the Predict strategy for 2 years, something like that. And it's just solid all-around list. It's become probably about just your standard Miracles list by this time. You might be a little heavier on Snapcaster Mages than most.
That makes sense with the 3 Ponder, though, because if you are blank on turn 3, you just want something to do with your Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, the Wear Tear in the main deck is real cool. It counts as a 2 and a 1 to your counterbalance, so it's pretty versatile. Also just answers random main deck threats.
So against a deck like Delver or something where they're mostly 1s, a couple 2s, and like maybe a few more expensive cards, Wear Tear just seems like the optimal card to keep on the top of your library with Sensei's Divining Top. You can just it will counter basically all of their spells with your counterbalance in play, and you don't mind seeing it just because getting it on top of your deck, even if you're never casting it, is still very, very powerful with counterbalance. Also interesting that he's only playing a 3 Force of Will and 3 Terminus. I think it makes a lot of sense with the 3 Ponder, 4 Brainstorm, 4 Top to see a lot of cards. You don't necessarily want to get flooded on these cards, and the matchups where you want them, you have the extra sideboard cards to kind of hedge anyway if you like need to draw 2 Force of Wills every game, but you just aren't forced to 2-for-1 yourself against, say, a young Pyromancer or something that's going to get them some value but won't necessarily end the game. And then, on win conditions, he has 3 Snapcaster Mages, 2 Jace the Mind Sculptors, 2 Entreat the Angels, just to make sure you can find end games in a timely fashion. And then the classic sideboard of a couple extra creatures with Mentors, Clicks, and Containment Priests, in case you're starting game 3 with 5 minutes on the clock and you just want to play 2 creatures and attack and hope that's good enough.
Yeah.
It's better than getting a draw.
We forgot to mention the lack of Entreats in the previous list, basically being replaced by the Nahiri and the Emrakul, which is very interesting.
And so it's just a different angle that people aren't always expecting. So maybe you're attacking in with your Gurmag Angler thinking, okay, like this is bigger than any Entreat tokens. And then he just plays in Nahiri and exiles it, and you're out of luck.
Yeah.
The Kozilek's Return on the sideboard, also some interesting technology.
Yeah, he was interested in finding an instant speed way of interacting that
Mhm.
wasn't volcanic fallout.
Yep.
I believe.
And being